Howdy, my name is Sandy and I'm a neuroscience major at Texas A&M University. Today my partner and I will be discussing agricultural damage and loss caused by two aphid species. Aphids are known to be one of the most damaging insects because of their physical and behavioral nature, and we will explain the specific methods of damaging crops by two species to determine which does the most harm. The species that I will be defending is the Melanophis zachary, which is also known as the sugarcane aphid. And the question at hand today during this debate is going to be which of these species is more destructive and causes most yield and economic loss.
Howdy everyone, my name is Reagan Touche and I am a human resource major at Texas A&M University, and I am taking this class for my life and physical sciences credit. And so to get started in this debate, me and my partner Sandy will be going over losses and damages in agriculture by sugarcane and soybean aphids. My species is the Aphis glycines, also known as the soybean aphid, and my partner Sandy's species is the Melanophis zachary, known as the sugarcane aphid. Because of the aphid's sap-sucking characteristics, tons of damage can be made to the crops and other plants. So that is what we will be talking about in this debate.
Sugarcane aphids became a very invasive pest in North America in 2013 and expanded its range to over 400 countries. All aphids are female and they reproduce asexually, and the population increase is influenced by warmer and drier conditions. The sugarcane aphid has unique characteristics and can be identified by a pale yellow or gray body color, darker cornicles, tarsi, and antennae. Aphids also belong to the true bug insect order, which includes the defining characteristics of mouth parts. Sugarcane aphids damage plants directly by utilizing their mouths as a straw to suck out water and sugar from the plant tissues. This pest is also known to damage sorghum, which is a very versatile crop, by covering that plant with honeydew and removing its sap. These aphids extract water from plants, also reducing the efficiency of photosynthesis. Sugarcane aphids also damage plants by excreting honeydew, which causes a sooty mold buildup. The mold coats the surface of the plants, and that also hinders photosynthesis. Physical symptoms of the plant damage from sugarcane aphids includes purpling of younger plants that stunt growth, which also leads to the necrosis of leaf maturation. Sorghum is produced for grain, and aphids reduce that yield significantly and cause a serious amount of economic loss because of their high reproduction rate. So sorghum plays a large role in human consumption, as it's actually one of the top global cereal crops. Aphids destroying this nutrient-packed sorghum can impact the production of food in grain or syrup form, alcoholic beverages, animal fodder, and biofuels as well.
So a description of my insect is it's the soybean aphid. So it is a small yellow-bodied insect with black cornicles. Some have wings and some do not. They can actually be very, very harmful to agriculture. They feed on plants using their sucking needle-like mouth parts to extract the juices. Most of the time it is sap. That is what aphids feed on. Growth rates and plant vigor may decrease if the aphids are feeding in large groups. They cause damage including plant stunting, reduced pod and seed counts, distorted foliage, premature defoliation, stunted stems and leaves, lower seed weight, cause puckering and yellowing of plant leaves, and even cause underdevelopment of root tissue. So these are all very, very harmful to agriculture. And as little and harmless as they may look, they cause lots of damage to agriculture and harm plants in many different ways. Specifically, they use their sucking mouth parts to extract plant sap, and by doing so, soybean yield and quality can be reduced significantly. On top of that, yield can be reduced even more when heavy infestations result in the dark sooty mold which grows on the sugar excretions of aphids. They are also fully capable of transmitting viruses. A waste product is produced through aphids during feeding, really known as aphid honeydew. This waste promotes the development of the gray sooty mold, which is left on leaf surfaces, and reduces photosynthetic capacity of plants, like I stated previously.
So the opposition presented very strong points regarding the damage done by soybean aphids. The damage done by both sugarcane and soybean aphids is quite similar in that the pest drains the plant of its sap and it uses its piercing mouth parts to do so, as well as leaving behind honeydew that causes the sooty mold buildup. However, the soybean aphid is not known to transmit bacterial or fungal diseases directly to soybeans. Aphid feeding could potentially transmit viruses from one plant to another, but these viruses aren't technically considered to be threats to the soybean yield, which is why they're not directly targeted in any of the soybean aphid management methods. The sugarcane aphid, though, has reported yield loss from about 10% to more than 50%, since sugarcane aphids specifically feed on sorghum, which is used for various agricultural and economic profits. The overall damage appears to be slightly more drastic when comparing the two aphid species.
So, Sandy presented some similar points as to sugarcane aphids damaging root and tissue. However, sugarcane aphids feed on sorghum, while soybean aphids feed on plant sap and will overwinter on small woody shrubs called blackthorn. The aspects that these two aphids have in common is that they both have piercing, sucking mouth parts that excrete products from most plants. Um, they both cause plant decline and yield loss, and their honeydew and sooty mold that I talked about in the last clip can distrust harvesting. Adding on to what Sandy stated, sugarcane aphids have had reports of yield loss from 10% to over 50%, and this is because of their high reproductive rate on susceptible sorghum hybrids. All of these damages done by both aphids result in curling and yellowing of leaves. If there are sticky substances on or around the stems of a plant, that is a visible sign that an aphid has been sipping on some sap.
Reagan argues really excellent facts about the soybean aphid, and this pest is certainly damaging to the soybean crop, especially directly. However, from my research, it only appears that this aphid causes about an average yield loss of 7% compared to the average yield loss of sugarcane aphids, which is about 15%. So to give some perspective, Texas is actually the second largest grain sorghum producer in the entire country, and during the more susceptible crop stages or warmer temperatures, this facilitates the growth of sugarcane aphid colonies exponentially. And between the years of 2014 and 2016, these aphids caused about a $39.98 of loss per acre, which overall resulted in about $276.17 million loss in the sorghum industry of just Texas alone.
Okay, so Sandy did provide you guys with some numbers of loss throughout agriculture and costs per acre of damage that was done by aphids. And just going off of what she talked about, aphids remove plant sap using sharp, piercing mouth parts that suck on undersides of new growth. And that is what damages every agriculture that they suck on. They just suck on the underneath of plants and leaves and stuff like that. Lots of management methods have been put into play as an option for reducing plant damage due to aphids and preventing outbreaks. So, like I had stated before, there's a sticky substance around the stems of a plant, and if you see that, that means that aphids have most likely been sucking on the plant, and that is one thing that we can look at and prevent from happening after you see it. The percentages of yield loss provided by Sandy over each aphid are in fact very accurate as well.
To conclude my portion of the debate tonight, despite the effective agricultural damage done by soybean aphids, my position still stands that the sugarcane aphid is more destructive agriculturally and economically. Sugarcane aphids have affected North America and hundreds of other countries and specifically harm the sorghum crops. They harm them very rapidly and effectively with direct and chronic plant destruction, as well as them having a very high reproductive rate, especially in warmer weather, and they're very resistant to pest control as well. The sugarcane aphid is used in research to develop sorghum hybrids that are resistant to these pests in order for farmers and companies to produce the highest yield of these crops for human consumption and to prevent as much economic loss as possible. Thank you so much, and excellent job to my partner, and we very much enjoyed doing our research for this debate. Thank you.
So, to wrap everything up with our debate over aphids, overall, aphids in general do cause a lot of agricultural damage. Sugarcane aphids may be more destructive and cause more problems, but soybean aphids are right behind them. It is important that we learn about these aphids as we can try to prevent this from happening as plants and yield will continue to decrease. So, like I said, if you ever see sticky substances are on or around a plant's stem or leaves, something like that, that means that an aphid has been sucking the sap. So we could always prevent that from happening even more if we see that and then do something about it. When a soybean aphid comes into contact with leaves or plants, they appear to suck on the leaves underside along with stems and pods, which is not ideal for agriculture.